Hello guys, my name's Michael and I am Newsboy Audio. Today we are comparing two speakers, Magnepan 1.7 and the Ethos, Martin Logan Ethos here. Now let's talk about the differences between these two speakers. Let's start with cost. This one sells for about $1,500 to $2,000 used. You can find them right now on the marketplace pretty easily for those prices. They do come up available, but there are some demand for them still. And so they may not stick around too long. I haven't had much problems finding people who are interested in them, but they have taken a little bit because it is a very specific type of speaker with a very specific type of listener that it can provide, really. Whereas the Martin Logans, they sell for about $3,000 to $4,000 used. And this speaker provides a little bit more robustness. Both are dipole speakers, which means the sound comes out the back. And both are very, very good. The difference that I noticed specifically between the two is that this one has dropped about less than half in value in 10 years. Whereas this has dropped well more than 1/3 the value in 10 years. They both came out about the same time. This one was around 7,000 new, and this one was around 2,000 new. So this one has dropped very little recently, and this one dropped a little bit more. What I've noticed with the two speakers is that the Martin Logans relies on a lot more electronics. It's an electrostatic speaker as opposed to the panel speaker. An electrostatic speaker requires a very high voltage. The sound that you make when you're walking around the carpet and charging yourself is the same sound that these speakers use, the same force that these people use. So they use a very high voltage in this to create an arc of sparks that causes the diaphragm in the center to move. This one uses magnetic waves to cover a sheet or a panel of magnetic bands and two magnetic sources. So the diaphragm moves them both. They're both panels, so they're both very thin. And as I said, they're both dipolar. Sound comes out the back and sound comes out of the front. As far as the other difference that you'll notice is the woofer down here. This big bass down here is very nice. It's got a nice driver in there. It looks about 5 inches or probably 8 or 9 inches. Don't quote me exactly on that. I don't know specifically. It has also an active port on the bottom. We'll show you those stuff later. The difference between the price is probably due to the components in this, the electrical components, which when I bought these used, one of the channels was a little lower in volume. The original owner took care of it and is going to pay for the part. Martin Logan was superior and excellent in diagnosing the problem and getting me the part. So I have no complaints there, but it does point to one of the flaws of this speaker in the used market, and probably one of the reasons why it doesn't retain its value as well. When this speaker stops being supported by Martin Logan, you will no longer be able to buy these electrical components when they fail. And the electrical components in these Martin Logans are quite complex. I often see the same capacitors used on these boards in my PC, this tiny, tiny little ones. They have other more regular components, but they also use integrated circuits in there. So it makes me a little nervous to own these past the expiration date because I may not get the electronics that I really need. But I'm sure that there'll be an aftermarket for them even then, and people repairing these parts. So you know, it's not going to be an end of life situation totally when they, you know, hit that point in their age. Whereas the Magnepans have a more traditional crossover design in them and do not require as much electronics. They do not require an external power source. It can be powered specifically off your amp, and they do not need all of those extras, which begs me to think that this might last longer. But with that said, Magnepans do have one noticeable problem that does occur as they get older, and it's why many of the older speakers are very, very cost effective, and that is called delamination. The magnetic bands on this eventually wear out, and the glue on it starts to fall away, so the bands start coming away from the diaphragm. This was specifically a problem when there were more panel speakers and less ribbon speakers. Magnepan says that the ribbon speakers last longer, and they also said that past the 1.6 model that they will have a longer lifespan without delamination occurred. They seem to claim that the delamination problem has been solved. We'll see if it has. I have not known any problems with this yet, but I have not totally pulled the speaker apart or anything. So, you know, there may be a little bit of that going on. I don't know. But from what I can see when placing a light behind it, it's really not a problem. So how do these two sound? Well, being dipole speakers, you would think that they would have a very big sound. And that is pretty true. Both are very, very accurate, better than any diaphragm speaker I have ever heard. And so, you know, in that end, they're very, very good. The difference, the most notable difference, is the low end. The Martin Logan's superior. I mean, that driver is extremely good. They go way, way down. It almost sounds like a subwoofer, actually. Whereas the Magnepans can kind of cut down on the really, really low end. Magnepan does sell a woofer, a dipole woofer for these. I saw them for about $900 to $1,000 on the market, brand new. I have not seen them on the used market. They're not very popular. And as I said in the last video, I thought that these were, they could be bi-amp, but I was actually incorrect, and one of my listeners corrected me and said that that was this tweeter attenuation. So you can add a resistor, 1 ohm resistor, on the tweeter to bring the tweeter down in some situations. I have not tried this yet. I may not get an opportunity to, but I have been able to, it should fix the problem, or definitely bring up the bass a little bit more. I don't think it will ever perform as well in the super low end though without a separate subwoofer. So in a home entertainment system, you may want to add that. Or if you really like deep bass, like 1812 Overture with real cannons, we listened to this and the cannons could not be heard. Usually that is really, really low. It's a low rumble. It's one of the lowest rumbles and one of the most demanding rumbles I've had on a speakers. So if you really want to test a speaker out, I recommend that track, 1812 Overture. It's a classical music by Tchaikovsky. Towards the end is when the cannons start firing. So you can find some recordings with those cannons and some without. They use drums without. I would find the ones with cannons to test your speakers with. They can be really fun because they can really rumble the ground with a good subwoofer. But getting back to the Magnepans, as you can see, they're a little bit different. The build is a little bit different. And we've got the bass and the sub down here. On the back, we have a control to change the level of the bass, bring it up or down. And we have 2 speaker posts right there with, you know, the ability to add an amplifier. Martin Logan does say that these are 4 ohm speakers, so make sure you use adequate amperage. And as far as the Magnepans are very tricky, and they are a little less complicated to operate. As I said, we were a little corrected in some of the assumptions. This is the attenuation, the tweeter attenuation here. You could put a resistor, 1 ohm or less resistor is what Magnepan suggests, instead of this bar here. They also have a fuse, and they have 2 speaker ports. They're a little less fancy, no gold, but that's actually not really needed. They only use the gold to try to plate it and keep it from corroding. So if they look like they're stainless steel, so they probably shouldn't rust. I don't see any problems with discoloration or anything over a period of time. Maybe that will change, but so far these both have been extremely enjoyable to enjoy. The other thing that I noticed with these is the way they are shaped. This one has a curved surface on the front and is slightly tilted back, whereas this one is very, very flat and very straight and stands straight up. And if you think about it, this one leads to a little bit better sound stage because the sound is coming off of this in many directions, and so it's a little less beamy that I noticed. Whereas this one is very picky on where you put it and how you place it. And if it's just a little bit out of place, it can change drastically the characteristics of the sound you're hearing. So a lot of Magnepan players move around this stuff. There is also quite a bit of discussion about these and using certain amps and other certain amps. I've tried a larger number of them. I've tried everything from 50 watts on up to 200-300 watts. I've tried Class D, A, and AB. My recommendation is simple. Weight. Weight is more important than probably any other characteristic of the amp. And the reason why is because most of the weight goes into the transformer, and a larger transformer will have more current. If you can up that wire inside it and the size of the wire, you can have more current. So that's what I tend to recommend is heaviness when looking for a very high current amplifier. Also, it's nice if you find an amplifier with a rating of 2 ohms. Not all amplifiers have ratings of 2 ohms, and many of the high-end amplifiers will support 2 ohms, even if they don't have a rating for it. But you do want to be careful. If it has that weight, you'll probably be okay. You know, but of course, you guys got to be responsible or you'll destroy your equipment. So this is a comparison between the two. Hopefully we'll come out with reviews individually, and later on I will talk about the sound of these and how I compare them. I can't really talk about them now because I haven't quite experienced Martin Logan's long enough. So we will be diving into that a little bit more in the future. But right now I really wanted to give you guys a visual comparison of these two so that you could see what it's like. Subscribe and like my channel again. Those videos will be out. Thank you. Bye.